Hello, and welcome to the Judo Way of Life podcast. Before we get started and I introduce today's guest, I'd like to quickly apologise for the audio quality of this episode. Recording across continents can sometimes present challenges, so I appreciate your patience and understanding with this one. Now, having said that, let's meet today's guest. Today, I am joined by a good friend, training partner and former rival, Michael Horley. Michael represented Great Britain for a number of years, with career highlights including competing at the 2010 World Championships in Tokyo, ranking number 1 on the European ranking list in 2013, and also winning numerous European Cup medals, including gold at the prestigious German Open. Following his competition career, Michael has smoothly transitioned into coaching elite judo athletes, initially at Judo Scotland, and he is now based in Canada working with Judo Saskatchewan. Hello, Michael, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on your podcast.
Firstly, I'd like to start off by asking you how you started learning judo, or where did it all begin?
It all began with my granddad. When I was 9 years old, he knew someone who used to do judo that I used to work with. And then he asked me if I wanted to give it a go sometime. I was like, yeah. So we phoned the guy up, found out what times Carlisle Judo Club was training, and then popped down one Monday night, had a good session. Everyone was really friendly, the coaches, the athletes, really welcoming, and threw someone to rip on. I like the feel of it. They might have just jumped over for me, I don't know, but I like the feeling of throwing people around, so I was kind of hooked on it after that. And then this was history, really. Got into competitions quite early on. And things just snowballed from there, really.
Did you do any other sports as a kid, or did judo become sort of the one and only quite early on?
It became the one and only quite early on. I think I tried to play football for a bit, or soccer for more Americanized people listening, but I was really bad at it. Just used to get screamed at all the time because I didn't understand the offside rule, which is a bit of an inconvenience when you're mid-football match. But I couldn't really get into any other sports. Judo was the one for me.
And did you find it an easy sport to learn in the beginning, or did you face any particular challenges?
I think at the time when I was doing it, I was like kind of clueless, I guess. So I thought I had good technique. Looking back now, I put my head in my hands. I remember trying to do Tayatoshi for the first time. It was an abomination of the technique. So luckily I had very patient coaches who sorted me out. But it is a difficult sport to do. It's very tactile. You need to have a bit of judo feel as well. But sometimes that doesn't come till much later on. I think I was in my 20s before I started to develop that kind of skill set. But luckily there's a big emphasis on my strength and conditioning. So we developed a fight system that relied on, it made the most out of my physicality and good level of condition. So I had like an unorthodox style, which played to my strengths, luckily. And then I developed a bit of a better judo feel as I got older. But it's not an easy sport to learn, for sure. It is tough. Get the odd talent, but it is a tough one to learn.
So you were saying there that you were about 20 when you started to get this judo feel. Was that about around the time where you sort of take the sport more seriously, or were you younger when you decided, okay, well, judo's the sport that I'm going to focus my time and effort on?
I was always kind of obsessed with judo from an early age. I think from 9 years old, I decided I wanted to qualify for Olympic Games. Well, one of the coaches, he gave me a poster of the British judo team at a photo shoot at the Atlanta Olympic Games, and I kind of decided, right, I want to be a Olympic champion. That was kind of my goal. Didn't work out in the end from that early age. That was what I wanted to do. So I was, training. Well, I was doing judo a few times a week, and also doing like little circuits and stuff like that from quite a young age, just because that was my goal I had in mind. Just probably quite unusual for I was doing that from the age 9 to 12 years old. I was pretty obsessed with the sport from a young age.
And then when did that obsession become more of a focus in terms of your training and competitions? So obviously I know we compete together and we're teammates on the Northwest area and then later on the GB team. But where for you did that sort of come together?
I was 15 when that started happening. I think I'd already competed in national championships and stuff, and I never medaled. That was partly because your fault as well, because we were from different squads. You beat me that time for bronze. That was maybe the final straw. But 15, things started to take shape, and that was due to Brian Moore, who was the GB cadet manager at the time. He used to invite me to squad trainings and stuff. I think he was quite interested in my work ethic, more so than my judo skills. And then I think he got sick of seeing me getting thrown all the time, so then he suggested I start training on Kendall. I think it just meant once a fortnight or something like that, just for a bit of extra training to try and improve my judo. But then it turned into training once a week to a couple of times a week, 3 times a week, plus the Northwest squad weekends where I changed squads to turncoat, and then we that's where me and you got to know each other on those Northwest squad training weekends and stuff. So 15 seems to be the catalyst when it all started to take shape.
And then from there, you obviously I know that we went on to train full time together at Kendall Judo Club, and I just wondered if you could just sort of go into the transition going from only training a couple of times a day and then having to do school or university and work, and then transitioning to being a full-time athlete.
Yeah, it was a tough transition, to be expected, because once when you're living and training on site, there's an expectation that you're going to be training more. So we train 3 or 4 times a day, and we also had to help out around the club as well. So it wasn't like we were just lying around sleeping when we weren't training or anything. So I remember when we first started training full time, we had that rule that Mike kindly gave us where whenever we left the dojo building, we had to climb up the Torii Arch. The Torii Arch, for anyone listening, it was a big wooden frame that went outside Judo Club, and we'd have to climb up it, then traverse across, do 10 pull-ups in the middle, traverse to the other end, climb down. We had to do that every time we left the dojo. So by the end of it, we had pretty bad calluses on our hands after a few weeks, and skin was ripping off. And luckily we had a judo competition coming up in Italy that week, so our coach was like, right, no more. You can stop climbing up the Torii Arch now, lads. Thank God for that, because it was getting ridiculous. We were climbing out the bathroom window to try and avoid going out the front door and having to climb up the Torii Arch. But that was kind of and it gives you an idea of the kind of taskmaster Mike Lipshaw, our coach, was in Kendall, and always made us do really things that would toughen you mentally as much as anything. So things like that were hard to deal with. But I remember the first 3 weeks are always, but they were hard. But I know younger athletes that came into train as well, they'd always find those first 3 weeks really tough as well, from as far as I could tell. It's a tough transition today. Never really gets any easier, you just get better at dealing with it. Once you get past the 3-week mark, it's still tough, but your body just gets better at coping with it as time goes on.
Yeah, I remember those early days. I think you've been, 3 weeks is kind. I remember it taking a little bit longer for myself to really transition into that kind of training and the physical and mental toughness that was required. But once we got there, I remember it becoming not easier in a sense, because the training always got harder because we were able to handle more. But then it got easier because we got used to it in a way, and it was always getting mixed up, and we're always being thrown curveballs to challenge us.
Yeah,
I remember, like you say, the gripping circuit we used to do, and having to climb up the piece of material with the metal bar at the bottom, and just shredding my fingers, and just having nightmares about that thing. And every time I had to do a gripping circuit, I always knew that the material was going to come out, and if you fell or let go, you're going to get whacked on the legs by this piece of metal at the bottom.
Yeah,
Nothing like a bit of fear to make you cling on.
Yeah, that was particularly tough. My nails would always be bleeding after that, climbing up the canvas, so I always preferred the rope. When I'm saying 3 weeks, I'm not suggesting after 3 weeks everything's fine and dandy. I think it's just that first, that's when it's like it's a big slap in the face that first 3 weeks, just a big shock to the system. And after that, it's still tough, but you just just level out a wee bit over time. But it is a tough thing. It was tough from start to finish the whole time. I think it was like almost over like a 10-year span we were training full time for. It was always tough, but I think we just got better at dealing with the stress of it. So we've learned how to, you weren't as anxious all the time. Like when the ropes got pulled out after a randori session, it wasn't like full on, oh no, we're going to do rope climbs. It's like, no, this is what we do. The rope comes down, we do 5 rope climbs. It's just what you do. It's just a process. You're not overjoyed to see your coach lower the ropes down, but you're not like full on panic, like, because you know what the expectations are after you've been training full time a good while. So
yeah, it was the same with I remember used to doing the beep test at the end of a hour and a half randori session, and then you'd hear those famous start of level 1. You'd have to line up and get ready to really flog yourself.
Yeah, we weren't.
And you're already pretty fatigued from randori.
It wasn't used as a fitness test; it was like a character building thing, really.
Yeah, it was a lot of it was just that mental.
Yeah,
building that mental strength.
The thing I hated the most was the sprint drills at the end over 2 Olympic-sized mat areas. I found that really hard. I'd always get nervous about that. You weren't always sure what you were going to get, if it was going to be like a circuit type thing. The rope climbs were always there afterwards anyway, just expected. Like even if we didn't do them within the session, you just expected to do the rope climbs afterwards on your own accord. But I remember now, about 9:15, the session finished at 9:30. There was like 7:30 till 9:30 was the session at night. 9:15 the session would end, and you just weren't quite sure what you were going to get, whether it was a bleep test, the more anaerobic style bleep test. There was that one as well. There was that one where you had to grab a weight and just they weren't allowed to put the weight down, doing push press, chest press, twists, but just weren't allowed to put the weight down. Or there's the body carry one. We have to carry each other. And that was quite grueling. But the sprints were always the worst ones. Never enjoyed the sprints. I'd always feel like spewing up afterwards. That was tough. But yeah.
See, for me, it was the rope climbs.
Mystery conditioning.
It was the rope climbs that would instill deep anxiety into me. I didn't mind the running. The sprinting, I was more than happy to do the sprinting. But as soon as the ropes came down, I'd be getting nervous.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So, obviously, you talk about the mental development. So there's talk quite a lot about the physical requirements and of the training, and you touched there on the mental aspect. And having competed at such a variety of different levels, all the way up to the World Championships, I'm just curious how the mental training, how much of a role that played on your preparation for the competitions at the different levels.
Okay, so I think first of all, the hardness of the training, like how tough the training was, developed your mental strength in that sense. So one thing that you could expect from us when we were competing was we'd always give it our all. No matter who we were against, we'd always fight to the death kind of thing, whether we were against someone who was below our level on paper or much better than us on paper, we'd always give them a fight. So there was that. We had that never give up kind of attitude. That's not to say we weren't, well, I can only speak for myself because I don't know what was going through your head half the time. It's not to say, you didn't get a little bit of self-doubt every now and then or anything like that, but bottom line, you always give it everything you got on the mat. So I think, that was a minimum kind of requirement you'd expect from us. We'd fight to the death. So there was that. And then I think in terms of mental toughness for competitions, I think it kind of just got something that improved over time. through trial and error, I guess, just learning how to, if you're nervous, not worrying about being nervous, just accepting you're going to be nervous. If there's ever a time to be nervous, it's probably when you're about to fight someone. So it's just learning how to accept the nerves and manage them more than anything else. I'm not sure if that doesn't really come from full-time training. It just comes from learning your craft. The more competitions you do, the better you get at figuring out that sweet spot of not freezing, but not being too complacent either. I had competitions where sometimes I wouldn't feel nervous, but then I'd fight really badly as a result. I say not nervous, wouldn't be as nervous as usual, but then I'd pay the price for it. And then some other times I'd be a bit too nervous and maybe freeze up a little bit on the mats, not move as well. But I think you get better at. The more competitions you do, the better you get at managing it, and the better you get at your routines as well. It's familiarity as well. Like if you first time you fight in Belgium Open or something like that, or first time you fight in a European Cup, it's like you're a bit like a rabbit in headlights. You're just not used to the different, like waiting in a holding area at a European Cup or Grand Slam or whatever. It's like that's a very nervous place to be. But after you've done it a few times, you kind of know what to expect. So I think that helps, having a good routine at your competition. In some ways, European Cups or international events were better to get into a routine than, say, domestic tournaments in the UK because it's completely different. Like at a World Cup, sometimes I'd be on like one of the first contests on. So it's like, you have your breakfast after you've weighed in the night before and all that stuff. You go to the venue, you do your warm-up, like your general warm-up, and then you're pretty much good to go. You might be first or one of the first 5 contests on, your kind of routine sorted out, and then there's maybe an hour or two before your next contest where you just chill out in the warm-up room for a bit and do a bit of a warm-up again. And it's like wash, rinse, repeat throughout the day. Unless you get bombed out in the first round, that's another story. Whereas competition in the UK, I went through a phase of getting more nervous about competitions in the UK because the expectation was higher. Like it was just relief if you won a medal or won because you kind of expected. Also, as well for heavyweights, usually on end of the day, like you'll weigh in early morning, say, I will put 90 kilos on at 4 p.m. and you're like, Duh. So you just kind of. Yeah, it's hard because you're on edge kind of all day. So it's hard I found it hard trying to relax. So I was always a wee bit anxious throughout the day and grumpy and probably quite difficult to be around all day. Whereas abroad, I knew I'd be on like pretty early on in the morning and then you kind of know, you just have a better process. And so it's learning what works for you. But I think having a routine and having that familiarity is a good starting point.
And in terms of that routine, did you learn that yourself through trial and error, or did you have any help in building, or did you seek out any resources to help with that side of your training and competition development?
It was mainly trial and error. And like when we were like cadets, like when we were just young juniors, I was getting told off by Brian and Mike for doing a bad warm-up. That kind of like made us do a better job of warming up. Also, Brian once, I don't even remember this, but we had a session at Kendall, and before the session, I think it was the first session we did. He just went, right, boys, rope climbs, off you go. And normally we do rope climbs at the end of the session, we're like, warm, and we just fly up and down the rope. We did it, we could barely do one rope climb. And then when we got down, Brian was like, yeah, that's what happens when you don't warm up properly. Like, that's why you do warm-ups before competition. So then that kind of sank with me. I saw how bad I was at rope climbs without being warmed up compared to what I'm like, after the sessions, after a 2-hour session, when you fly up because you're warm. That kind of really rang home for me. So that's that kind of brought it home for me. But I think just getting used to doing what works for you, not necessarily what everyone else does. Like for me, even if I was on at the end of the day, I benefit from doing a warm-up right at the start. While all the mats were clear, I'd always do a long warm-up then. Even if it wasn't until 4 p.m., I'd still warm up there then. I maybe wouldn't warm up as hard as what I would if, I was on straight away, but I'd always do it just help get rid of the nerves. So I just do that regardless. Some people thought I was daft for doing it, but I just felt better for it. Just got rid of a few nerves and stuff. Abroad, again, it's a bit easier. You've got a bit more there's a bit more structure to those competitions. Have a better idea of when you're going to be on. So yeah, just over time, you just get used to what works for you, what kind of, your process throughout, like you're going to do what time you do your kind of circuit-based stuff to get your heart rate jumped up, and just get used to it as time goes on. Think as well, as you get older, you have to spend more time warming up. It seems to take a bit longer to get warmer the older you are. Plus, you've probably got a few niggling injuries that you have to prehab beforehand as well. So you go on the mats a bit earlier, do some activation, mobility stuff, which you probably don't really need to do when you're like junior and under 21. But as you get older, you have to take all that kind of stuff into account. Another thing I noticed I did, that people laughed at me about a bit, was I just like hide in the warm-up area like all day if I was having a good day, because I just stayed focused in there, and I wasn't stressed about somebody getting called up to the holding area because I was like right next to it. I just chill out in there. I'd have all my energy drinks, my food, my fuel. I just stay warm, nice warm jacket on. I just chill out in there. That seemed to work for me. Sometimes it get a bit much if you're there for if there's a long day, it's like 7 hours or something. Like that's a long time. I just go from warm up area to mat side. But I preferred that than being distracted in the stands sometimes. I'd sometimes pop out to watch who I'd be competing against next to get an idea. But yeah, I just prefer to be in the warm up area for some reason. It's like a little cave to hide in.
Do you miss competing now that you're coaching?
Sometimes, but then, hey, everything seems to hurt a bit more than it used to nowadays. And I don't know. I do miss it, but I think I have to accept it's done. Like, to compete at a high level, I couldn't, like, the limited training I'm doing now, which is just so I don't die of a heart attack, really. I go to the gym like a few times a week, just doing strength stuff. Go for a walk. It was minus 32 degrees here in Saskatchewan, so I hadn't been out walking much because I didn't want to die of hypothermia. So I went for a walk yesterday, and that was the first walk I'd done in like a proper walk for like 2 months, and that comparatively I was pretty tired after that. So I don't think I'm in any condition to be competing. I think I just get snapped in two now if I was competing again. So yeah, it's just a dream, I guess. I do miss it, the adrenaline, the euphoria when it goes well, and the process of training full time. But I think the ship sailed for me now. I like doing a bit of Nailazzer as well when it's not COVID times, but yeah, I'm not as fit as what I used to be, so I think those days are gone.
And now that you're coaching, and obviously maybe not so much at the minute, but when competitions were operating and you were taking your players to competitions and coaching them and obviously seeing that they were nervous, would you get nervous for them? I know it sounds maybe a bit strange, but would you be feeling nervous as well, stood at the side of the mat as your player was about to go on? Or do you turn up to a competition and it's just sort of, right, let's get the job done? And is it a different experience? Or
it is different. I'm not like you do get a bit nervous. Some contests you always get a little bit nervous because you want them to do well, so there's that. And you want to do a good job mat side for them. So there is a little bit of pressure there. Kind of, I love competition. I love coaching at competitions. I like the excitement of it all, but always in the morning, it's more, I enjoy it more after the competition's done. I enjoy it more then, like reflecting on it and do, like the morning of the competition, you are a little bit stressed. You want everyone to do well. You're like thinking, right, you're kind of like on edge a bit, like, right, is everyone warming up properly? Yes, right. So-and-so we got in the flipping judo suit or whatever. So you have to go back to there's all this all the bits of nonsense you have to deal with as well. But it's just like, yeah, you do. There's a bit of stress that comes with it. Hopefully, none of the athletes can tell. Hopefully, I hide it well. And like I say, you want them to do well, so you do have some nerves. Yeah, that's it. But if you weren't getting nervous, it would be a worry because it didn't mean much to you, but it does mean something to me. So I'll always be a bit nervous, a bit on edge. Yeah.
And how do you feel that your training and the competitions that you did in the past, and like you say, all your mental preparation for those, the development you did in training, how do you feel as though that's helped set you up in terms of your life post your own personal competitive career? Do you feel as though it's had much of a benefit?
I think so. I think something that competitive judo, or any competitive sport, but I think the thing you discover is, like, I can only go off how I used to feel when I used to compete. But in the morning, I'd be like, kind of excited to compete, but yeah, also there's a bit of like dread and pressure when you first woke up. I was a bit like, you're just like, oh, I've had that horrible feeling in my stomach. It's like, I remember GB World Cup in Glasgow. I think I was fighting a Brit first round, so I felt like, on home soil. So I was like, this is like, it's a lot of pressure, eh? You just kind of like, there's that feeling of dread, but you just get on with it. Like, you just have to get on with it. So I think that's what it does. For life outside of judo, when there's stuff you don't really want to do or you're nervous about, you just kind of get on and do it anyway. So that's something that's helped outside. Like, when I've had interviews and stuff like that for, even like, not just for judo jobs, but strength and conditioning jobs, you're like nervous about it, you just crack on and get it done anyway. You learn not to let fear kind of dictate your life. Just get on with it. Like, so that's something that it does for it.
That's great. So we'll wrap it up there, Michael. I think that was awesome. Really appreciate you taking the time to share your thoughts with us today.
No problem. Sometimes it's hard to answer because I'm thinking back in time to last time I competed was 2014, and you go through different stages, I guess, as you from being a nervous 9-year-old fighting your first competition to like fighting in Europe and stuff, the different experiences and feelings to draw from. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed chatting.
Thank you.